Okay, so picture this. You're on vacation, right? And you wake up and you are feeling just absolutely awful. But here's the kicker. You're in a country where you don't speak the language. How do you even begin to explain what's wrong to a doctor? Is a nightmare scenario, right?
Huh.
Luckily, someone sent in this YouTube video all about mastering medical English. And I think after this deep dive, we're going to be armed with some seriously helpful phrases.
Yeah, it's a really practical video. I especially liked the section on the tape recording method, that idea of repeating phrases and mimicking pronunciation, just like we used to do with those old language tapes.
Okay, yeah, I remember those.
Well, there's some solid science behind that approach, actually.
So let's break that down a bit. How does the tape recording method actually help someone become more fluent?
Well, on a basic level, repeating phrases out loud helps solidify them in your memory. But it's actually much more than just memorization. When you mimic the pronunciation and the intonation, you start to internalize the rhythm and the flow of the language.
I see.
It's almost like training your mouth to produce the sounds naturally, like developing a muscle memory for language.
So it's not just about understanding the words, but delivering them convincingly.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, what I appreciate is this video doesn't just throw a ton of random phrases at you. It organizes them into categories, which makes it much easier to digest.
Right. It's like they're giving you building blocks for having medical conversations.
Exactly. And that first building block is all about describing symptoms.
Which makes sense, right? If you can't clearly explain how you're feeling, it's going to be really difficult to get the right diagnosis.
For sure. So the video highlights phrases like, I've been feeling dizzy, or I've had this cough for a week. Simple but essential, right?
Absolutely. And what's interesting? Even these simple phrases can actually shift the power dynamic in a medical consultation.
Really? How so?
Well, by using clear and assertive language, you're taking an active role in communicating your needs.
I see.
You're not just a passive patient waiting for instructions. You're a participant in your own healthcare.
I like that, taking control of the conversation. And sometimes you need to be really specific, even if the symptom seems a bit unusual. Like the video uses the example, I've lost weight without trying.
Right, which could be a sign of something serious.
Exactly.
And that's where the nuances of medical communication really come in. You're not just reciting phrases, you're using them strategically to give the doctor important information.
So those little details can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you've nailed describing your symptoms. What's next? Well, the video moves on to making requests. Things like, can I get a copy of my test results? Or, I need a referral to a specialist.
Being able to make those requests is crucial. Those phrases can really help you navigate the healthcare system more effectively.
Yeah, it's about being your own advocate,
Yeah.
right? Not being afraid to speak up and ask for what you need. Now, there's one more category of phrases that this video covers, and that is asking important questions. Because let's be real, medical jargon can be super confusing even in your own language.
Absolutely. You really need to feel comfortable asking for clarification. Phrases like, is this medication safe to take with my current prescriptions?
Right.
Or, what should I do if my symptoms get worse? Cure. Those can make a huge difference in understanding your treatment plan and in feeling confident about your care.
Okay, and speaking of feeling confident, there's a section in this video that really stood out to me. It's the part about AI roleplay.
Oh, yeah.
They present it as a way to practice these phrases in a low-pressure environment.
Yeah.
And they use this example of ordering coffee.
Ordering coffee.
Yeah, no, it sounds a little strange at first.
I see where they're going with it.
Right.
Think about all the communication skills involved in ordering a complicated coffee drink. You have to be specific about what you want, maybe ask for modifications, and you have to be prepared to handle any unexpected twists.
Right.
And those are actually pretty similar to the skills you need in a medical setting.
Plus, it's a lot less intimidating to mess up a phrase with an AI barista than with a real doctor.
Exactly. And that's what's so great about these new language learning tools. They let you practice and make mistakes without feeling self-conscious.
That's a good point. AI can simulate a conversation, but it can't perfectly replicate real-life human interaction, especially in a healthcare setting where things like emotions and cultural factors play a big role.
Exactly. Mastering these phrases is super important, but it's also crucial to remember that communication goes beyond just words.
Right.
What might be considered polite or appropriate in one culture could be perceived totally differently in another.
So basically, all this amazing vocabulary won't help me if I accidentally offend the doctor.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples of how cultural differences could impact medical communication?
Sure, let's say you're experiencing pain. In some cultures, it's totally normal to express pain openly and emotionally, while in other cultures, it's considered more appropriate to be stoic and downplay the discomfort.
Interesting.
And those kinds of differences can easily lead to misunderstandings, especially if the doctor isn't aware of the patient's cultural background.
That makes sense. So how can someone prepare for these cultural differences, especially if they're traveling to a country with unfamiliar customs?
Research is key. Before you travel, spend some time learning about the healthcare system and the cultural norms in your destination. Simple things like understanding how to address a doctor respectfully, or what's considered appropriate attire for a medical visit. Even how personal space is perceived can make a big difference.
Yeah. So it's like traveling with a cultural guidebook for healthcare, making sure you avoid any accidental faux pas. And speaking of resources, are there any other tools that you'd recommend for improving medical English besides this YouTube video?
Oh, definitely. There are some really great language learning apps out there, specifically designed for medical professionals and patients.
Oh, cool.
They often include things like interactive exercises and vocabulary builders. Some even have simulations of medical scenarios.
Wow, that's amazing.
And don't underestimate the power of real-world exposure. Even watching medical dramas with subtitles can help. You'll start to familiarize yourself with medical terminology and the rhythm of medical conversations.
It really does seem like mastering medical English. It's about way more than just memorizing a bunch of words. It's about understanding the culture, being aware of all those little nuances, and just being prepared to navigate a whole different system.
Exactly. And that's where I think this deep dive has been so valuable. It's given us a great foundation, a solid starting point. We've explored all those key phrases for describing symptoms, making requests, and asking those super important questions. Plus, we talked about the power of practice, whether it's that tape recording method or using tools like AI roleplay.
And I think what you really highlighted was that real-life communication, especially in a healthcare setting. It's about so much more than just words on a screen, like being mindful of those cultural differences, understanding the nuances of expressing discomfort or asking for help.
Absolutely, you've got it. Remember that scenario we started with. Feeling sick in a foreign country, it can be incredibly stressful. But having that confidence to communicate effectively, it can make a world of difference, not just in terms of getting the right treatment, but also in feeling more empowered and less vulnerable, especially during what can be a really anxious time.
That's such a good point. So to kind of wrap things up here, what would you say is the most important takeaway for someone who wants to master medical English?
That's a good question. I think it's this: approach it as a journey, not just a destination. There's always something new to learn, whether it's expanding your vocabulary, working on your pronunciation, or even deepening your understanding of cultural nuances.
It's about constantly growing and improving.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like this deep dive has given us a really fantastic roadmap for that journey. It's equipped us with the knowledge of the tools to navigate healthcare situations with way more confidence and understanding. It's been a fascinating deep dive. And honestly, I'm feeling much better prepared to handle whatever medical situation comes my way, no matter where in the world I am.